Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. And we have some familiar and new faces also on the show today. A lot of you guys know Travis Beachy from Farm and Yard down in Texas, here to join us again. Love having you on, Travis, to co-host. You're such a, I don't know, man, you are, if I took and I'm going to say this publicly here, and this is going to be like, what did he say that? If I had to just bequeath the podcast and say, hey, would somebody take this thing and run with it and do it? You'd be the guy, man. There's no doubt in my mind. You are who I think of.
That's big words, Shannon.
Yeah,
big words.
You're the guy that I think of whenever I think who would host and do a good job of what we're doing. So I appreciate you, man, always. And let's
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. It's very kind.
Yes, sir. And then, Alison, I'll tell you what, do you just want to introduce yourself to our listeners, a little bit about who you are and maybe what you do?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Alison Mullins. I am a young, somewhat middle-aged salesperson from, I currently live in Richmond, Virginia, but I'm from Southwest Virginia, and I'm really happy to be here. In 2022, late 2022, I started a business to get off the ground, a sales training program based on my 20 plus years of working in so many different environments, from telemarketing to retail. I've spent almost 15 years in the natural stone and engineered stone surfaces industry. So for people on this podcast, that may be a foreign entity to you, but a lot of people will talk about, kitchen and baths and construction and remodeling. And I've been in that world since late 2010. So yeah, quite a few years running around in the construction industry, and decided to launch this business called Rep Methods. And I wrote a book, and now I teach salespeople. I've got a nice little following, do really well with entrepreneurs, young business people who, it's hard. And what we don't realize is that everybody has to sell. No matter what you do, whether it's advertising, whether you're selling sheds, whether you're running a business and you've got to do marketing, everybody could use a little sales help, because our personalities don't always align. So that's kind of where I got the stream. It was a gift from my higher power, my God, to write this business proposal and get it off the ground. And I've been working my tail off ever since. So thanks for having me.
It's awesome.
Excellent. Oh, it's great. And one of the things that caught me just really early on your profiles, I love the art of selling, the title of your book, but the tagline to this is like, I feel like you've been listening to our conversations. I'm not sure here, or we've been listening to yours. I'm not sure, but I love this. It says, the art of selling, we are order makers, not order takers. And Travis, I know you have some thoughts on the difference of order taking and order making in the shed industry. But I just, I want you to start and talk and go wherever you want, but I'm just going to show my cards and tell you that is the most important part of the conversation for me today. And I want to talk about that whenever you feel fit. Travis, what are your thoughts initially? And congratulations, Alison, first of all, on starting this business. I like, we all are business owners here. Yep. So we understand, the challenges that can happen. But Travis, what kind of comes to mind for you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, that's super fascinating. You were in the hard surfaces business, so you got some construction background, so very relatable to the industry that we're in. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges come in for our industry is a lot of us in the industry can grab a hammer, can grab some 2x4s, can grab some nails, and can build a pretty good looking shed. And then the days are over where you just can get by with building a good looking shed. Competition has risen, more people doing it, more unique use cases. and now you got to market it. Now you got to sell it. It's one thing to have the best product, but you got to let people know about it. People have to know about it. And then how do you go about doing that in a healthy way, in a wholesome way that's good for the person, good for the buyer, good for the company, good for the brand, and how can you go out and create have a system or create a business where sales feels natural, it feels good for all parties involved, and it's healthy. I was really curious. In full disclosure, Allison, I have not read the book, so I'm excited to learn more about. And that's very impressive, by the way, going from what you've been doing to just writing a book. I have a lot of respect for people that write books because that's so far out of my wheelhouse. I can talk all day, but sit me down to write a book, I don't know if I can do that. But maybe when I'm 50 or 60, I don't know, we'll develop that skill. But at your age, that's very impressive. I was curious kind of where you're headed with the book, with that tagline. Is that, creating sales versus being order takers? Yeah, walk me through that. Where
Sure.
were you going with that?
Yeah, so that's probably one of my personal biggest talents. And I talk about it in the book, the idea for this motto, and actually I have a application filed with the trademark office. So this is all going to be trademarked very soon. Both the title, rep methods,
nice.
my brand, and this tagline, because it actually came from a former manager. And I hate to even call him a manager because he was actually a friend. And we decided to go on a business venture together. It was a post-COVID. And I came to come and work at their branch and become an employee again because I've kind of been a contractor for a really long time. And my methodology that I implemented for that branch was strategically about going out and getting business. And he used to tease me because there was, of course, when I came on board in late 2020, we just took off and the revenue stream increased, I think the first year, and I don't mean to brag, but I grew the business about $6 million in the first year.
Amazing.
And they were really happy with that. Right. And the boss man used to tell me, gosh, why can't everybody use your methods? That's where this whole business idea really started. Why can't everybody be an order maker? You are an order maker. You do not wait for people to come to you. You go out and you get the business and you bring it in. And that's what a real salesperson needs to do. It's not about sitting around and waiting for the phone to ring. It's not about, and I'll use what my little knowledge of the shed business, but in my very humble, please respectfully, the shed business is like, y'all put them out on the side of the road and you wait for people to stop and ask for a price, right? I mean, isn't that theoretically like kind of what the business was built around for a very long time?
That's right.
I think, Travis, it's very obvious to me that we just met today, but it's very obvious to me that you're trying to do something different with creating a brand. And you're trying to therefore create a demand for people to want to come to you. But when I started to write the book, it was really about post this job, and over the course of the 2 years that I was an employee with this company, slowly people wanted me to teach these methods, my methods of going out and merchandising business and bringing people to the branch and merchandising product and rebuilding the inventory, because it wasn't just about a whole singular sales perspective. It was building the brand and getting the brand where it needed to be to fit the customers that I was chasing. And in order to find that, you have to know who you are. You have to know what you represent. You've got to have a unique value proposition. You've got to be willing to put down on paper, right, your target customers. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be selling to? And so I invented some nifty little work ethic worksheets. So I actually have a workbook that goes with my book. I have a method called the octopus method. which is just something that I came about that teaches anybody to take a target product or a target customer group and to be able to build those tentacles of outreach. And how are you going to go out and squeeze that business and bring it into your inner circle? And so, getting all of this stuff that was in my brain down on paper was imperative for a multitude of reasons. Because when a manager asked me to mentor the youth of people coming in that only had like 1 or 2 years of business coming in behind me, and here I am, I'm not going to say I'm a supreme being, but with 10 years experience, and obviously more than that when it comes to merchandising and selling, just 10 years of stone business. And so I had to get it all down on paper. And that's honestly the gift that was given back to me to be able to start this business. And so when I wrote the book, I actually took a class, and I went to school just like anybody else, because you said you wouldn't know. I didn't know how to write a book either, but I humbled myself enough to sit down and learn and follow the steps that were provided for me in a writing school. And I hired an editor and hired
Love that.
And I had to go through the draft process, and I had to get humbled further by, even by the second draft, it felt like it was something I had written out of elementary school. It took a lot of work.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work and refinement to get it where it is today.
Hi, I'm Dylan from the Shed Geek marketing team, and I want to address a common misconception about marketing. Often people approach us for just one service, like social media management, where we plan and schedule your monthly posts. While this is a valuable time saver, it's just one piece of your complete marketing strategy, much like a shed with its various components. Let's simplify it. Think of your social media channels and Google My Business as the foundation, similar to the runners of a shed. They support your digital storefront, your website, which is like the floor joists and band boards. To enhance your marketing, you'll need tools like Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, and Google Tags, which are like the walls. These tools help track the success of your campaigns, measuring form submissions, 3D shed creations, and phone calls generated by our ads. Now, let's talk about the roof. Meta and Google ad campaigns. These are the top layers that complete your marketing shed. While you may inquire about one specific service, remember, they all contribute to the overall structure of your marketing strategy. At Shed Geek Marketing, we're happy to work on one individual aspect, but our goal is to build a comprehensive marketing shed that will truly stand out in the digital landscape. If you're ready to talk about your marketing strategy that will take your shed business to the next level, just go to shedgeek.com and fill out a submission form or contact the Shed Geek for more information.
But thank you. And I think we're all on the same page here, and you're doing exactly what I talk about with the branding and finding that unique value proposition in order to attract business. So I think I went off on a little tangent there, but I hope that was.
Well, I love what you said about. I love what you said about humble, man. That stops us so many times from trying new things and learning new things, because especially if you're already good at something, like you were already good at this method, but you had to basically, you were like a little baby learning how to walk when it comes to writing a book now and getting it down. And, I look at myself, and sometimes it's like, you have to humble yourself and go through the pain of it not being smooth and it being janky and it being ugly in the beginning, and like falling down, stepping back up, tripping over ourselves, getting back up, until you learn to walk, and pretty soon you're running then, and you're good at the next thing. So I love that word.
Thank you. Yeah. Humility is something that I've really had to focus on in the last few years in self-improvement, and I think we could all use a little bit of humility at times. And let me tell you, starting a business.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get a product in the marketplace. Let me tell you, that is an easy way to get humbled.
That's right,
my friends. So
that is right. That's right.
Anybody who's listening who has started a business and who has to try to like make revenue, boy, it's a humbling process.
Yeah. Who doesn't have VC capital funds from California or New York City to fund they just got to bootstrap it. That's 100% right. I think about that a lot, and honestly, that is a gatekeeper sometimes of starting a business. Is some people just don't want to go through that. So kudos to you for breaking out and doing that. I'm sure that was a lot for you to learn too, from breaking out from being a W-2 employee to a 1099 employee with your business. We have a lot of people in our industry who maybe they've been building sheds, or maybe they've been hauling sheds, or maybe they've been working in sales for a company, and they just kind of have that feeling in their gut that doesn't go away, that they want to break out and create their own retail store, or they want to create their own trucking company, or they want to start their own shed shop, and they just they have that feeling, but it's just like, man, it's hard to get over the hump to do it. And so I think that what you talked about there is a big key to being able to move forward and to do that.
It's an entrepreneurial mindset, right? And I believe I come from a long line of entrepreneurs in general, family history. I think it's in the blood. And I think sometimes, there's nothing wrong with collecting a paycheck, man. The stability is an amazing experience, but I feel like being an independent contractor for a few years and running my own QuickBooks, even though I had a secure, it was a contracted situation, that was my first taste of what it really feels like to be kind of free and on the outside. And I feel like once you get a taste of that freedom, right, to make your own decisions and to do your, hire an accountant and have a little help for this and look for contractors to help you in this place. Once you kind of get a taste of that freedom, it's really hard to go back and be a W-2, taking an order paycheck.
Yeah. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty.
Yes.
And it's kind of like it's the fear, I'm a big David Goggins fan. Some of my audience who goes and listens to David Goggins will say, why are you listening to David Goggins? But I'm a huge fan of his, and he's just very driven. I mean, this guy talks about how he was, not just the way he grew up, but then also the way that he was overweight, out of shape, working for minimum wage, and he was just like struggling with the day-to-day of life. And he goes on to be the only only guy to go through like Navy SEAL training, Travis. I think it was 3 times, because you a third time and then you're kicked out basically. And he's got
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Very rough story. Don't get me wrong. Like his story is not exactly one that, and his language is not maybe exactly something that everybody would appreciate. And I try to like filter those things out, and I try to take the meat and I leave behind the junk. Right. You know what I mean? And I listen to what he's saying. And this guy has just an amazing story about perseverance. Travis, you yourself, you've seen struggles in the industry and things like that. I mean, what do you kind of feel like I'm curious at what your mentality is on the direction that the shed industry is going. I'm calling it the old normal. I don't know if you've heard, but everybody started talking about the new normal. So I'm calling it the old normal. So like, what are your thoughts, man, on like where the industry is kind of going with like sales and all of these different trainings and things?
Well, I think what Alison's book's about, and even that tagline we were talking about, that's more important now than ever, because we all know the 2020s, the 2021s were order taking years, and you didn't have to. I mean, you could have been a shed delivery guy, hopped out of the truck and walked into the office and written up orders and sold sheds. Those days are gone, and now it comes back to actual sales craft, sales art, the art of selling, like Alison's book. And I think it's also a very humbling time right now. We were living high on the hog for a couple of years. Our industry, as we all know, benefited from COVID. I mean, we could not have orchestrated if we wanted to just make it rain sales, we could not have orchestrated anything better than what happened, just in terms of sales. I hated everything else that happened. But now it's humbling. It's slow out there right now. It's much slower out there right now. A lot of people are, down, 20, 30, some 40% year over year on sales, or especially in the last quarter. I mean, there are some people down 50% in the last quarter of this year that they're having to navigate some of this stuff. And so that is part of the entrepreneurial journey that you have to also humble yourself in and be willing to start saying no to stuff, start cutting stuff out, start cutting your costs while still maintaining your enthusiasm, your joy, still connecting with the customer and doing that. Yes.
Well, I got a question there. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying about cutting things and but I'm just curious, like, what are some of these businesses capable of actually adding to your service list in order to make yourselves more attractive? So the whole time you were talking, Travis, I mean, and forgive me again, I don't want to seem like I know it all here, but
go for it.
What kind of services can you guys offer to differentiate yourselves from somebody down the road? I mean, if you're having a hard time getting sales and getting the phone to ring, is it that delivery? Is it that setup? Is it that building transfer? What kind of services can actually come involved with your brand in order to try to increase the likelihood that you're going to get some business?
Today, we have something truly groundbreaking to discuss, the Zula from Mobino Solar Solutions. This incredible shed ventilation system is set to redefine how we approach air circulation and energy efficiency, a shed ventilation marvel. With 3 robust fans generating 630 CFM, 2 fans usher in a breath of fresh air, while 1 strategically expels staleness. What's groundbreaking? It's solar powered. Harnessing the sun's energy, the Zula is a sustainable dream eliminating electricity cost. Sleek, powerful, and eco-friendly, this system is a game changer for those seeking efficient air circulation without compromising on green values. Visit Mobino's site for more of this innovative solar shed ventilation solution and use the Shed Geek 10 for an extra 10% discount. Just visit www.mobinoSolarSolutions.com.
Yeah, great question. So let me clarify what I meant by cutting. Basically, cutting out some of the fat and the fluff that you sometimes take on through really good years, and running a little bit leaner while doing exactly what you talked about, figuring out other ways, other things that you can do to get business in, to be creative, to sharpen your skills. So that's the clarity that I want to bring around what I was saying about cutting. I mean, there is, I think, right off the bat, I think being able to really engage with customers and make them really feel like they're the only customer you're working with, and asking and just really getting the skill of asking good questions down, being able to really make a client feel like their problem is your problem, and providing solutions not based off of necessarily what you want to sell them, but what's going to be best for them, and what's going to be best for their situation. And then, I think there's opportunity right now. I mean, lean times will get your brain rolling in ways that the good times sometimes won't. Where what other services can you add? What other products can you add without without distorting your energy, or without watering down your energy? You still want to keep your main thing the main thing, but is there something that you can add on that would not distract your focus and would be in line with what else you do, that would really solve a problem for your clients?
Yeah, you really hit on, I think, some good points, which is the active listening. I think that some of us I've had to do the same thing in my business, which is basically listen to what some of the clients have been asking me for. So I know I'm rolling out a coaching program for 2024. My website's currently in a redevelopment stage as we speak. And I never actually intended to get into this business to do, be like a therapist, right? I didn't really want to be somebody who's going to be sitting on the other end of the phone counseling. I actually that wasn't part of my vision, but the clients were asking for it, and I had several entrepreneurial and young account managers who strategically want to talk and work out real life problems a couple times a month. And so lo and behold, starting in October, that developed this potential for a coaching plan program that's getting rolled out right now. And I've already got I think 4 independent agent coaches, coaching clients, which is a miracle, right? So it's a miracle of listening to the client, listening to the people. What are they actually asking for? Because what I had maybe in mind this whole time has to be able to shift. So I think that's another important element, is that active listening that you're talking about.
I want to jump in here, and on the bio that you have, Allison, that I love so much, and Travis, you're at a disadvantage there. I'm sorry, I didn't forward that to you. But this is so poetic, and talking back and forth about the interview questions or whatever. This is not taking no for an answer and fighting back towards a C-suite domination mentality versus boots on the ground, which will oftentimes talk about, online sales versus brick and mortar stores in our industry a lot. And it says, speaking with the community and discussing what it means to truly support one another in a field and in our diverse sales communities, volunteering, mentoring, and I love this, freely giving my knowledge to others who work for it. And and I could almost go on a tangent myself on that, on whether it's like, reading the shed publications that are in our industry. People choose not to, this is a job, I'm not going to read it. Listening to the podcast, going to trade shows, going to speaking engagements, investing in yourself. One of my favorite coaches, said something recently, and we were talking about the way he was dressed. And I was like, man, I'm a blue jean and hoodie kind of guy. That's just what I like to wear. And I was like, you're always dressed so nice. And he's like, well, how you dress says something about how you feel on the inside about, how you look to the audience. And I'm like, man, I've just always been the no fluff kind of guy, like Travis is talking about, like, hey, I'm a boots and blue jeans and hoodie kind of guy. But then he made me realize that, hey, there's a time to draw attention to the formality of the education of what we're trying to do. And I really see you as someone similar to myself, as like education is a passion. And like, so you want to educate people in the sales process. You want to educate them in the C-suite domination mentality versus boots on the ground. So with that in mind, it just begs the question, what do you see that's like the common denominator in sales training or sales coaching that could be applicable to like our industry? Because we're seeing tons of people say, oh, I need online sales. Oh, I need all these other things, but they're coming in with a penny budget. And I'm not being disrespectful. I'm saying they're coming in because they're like, I want to do it for the cheapest possible. Right. And we're trying to educate them on what it takes to be successful. The budget's just what it is. It's a byproduct of what it takes for you to be successful. So we need to educate people. But I'm curious, your thoughts, C-suite domination versus boots on the ground. What comes to mind for you?
Well, first of all, I want to answer your kind of proposal in 2 parts. First I'll address sort of like my volunteerism, right? And what that means to me and being an entrepreneur. I have found, and this was when I was still a W-2 employee 10 years ago, that one of the best ways for me to engage in my community was to volunteer. And it started with, a national association of some sort, right? At the time, it was National Kitchen and Bath Association. And if you go to my website now, I'm currently involved in national, and I don't want to name them all, but basically a Kitchen and Bath National Association, Women in Construction National Association, Women in Floor Covering Industry National Association. I work really hard with a group online called All Slab Fabbers. They're a community of stonemasons, and these are the people that I actually designed this business for. And the best way for me to have an expectation of return on business and relationships is by giving a lot of myself away for free. So I donate my time in mentorship groups. Women in Stone, I forgot to mention that one. This is one of my biggest ones with the Natural Stone Institute. I serve on a ton of communications committees, marketing committees, event committees. I give of my time to help analyze and work with connecting younger people. I've been a mentor in 3 different countries. And the work that I've done there, it's not only for professional recognition but it's a feel good, it's a give back, but it also keeps me connected as a boot on the ground, as a person who can get really, really limited in a geography, right? If you think about a territory manager or if in your all's case, a territory of ownership, right? We can get stuck in those zip codes that we work in on a regular basis.
Yep.
But by being involved nationally and internationally, I keep my ear to the ground and know and understand trends and perspectives and attitudes and choices. And I hear about things that would never be available to me in my strategically small zip code, right? And so keeping connected helps me be a better expert in my craft. And it's the one thing that I learned very early on has the largest payback for me professionally, mentally, and in an act of service, in giving back within my community.
Introducing the Real Steel Portable Barn Door Press. You can use it to assemble your doors using truss connector plates to create strong, straight doors. The truss plates are kept in place by using our precision spring plate system. The same system is used on our truss press. Standard size truss plates are 2x4. Other options are available. Air cylinders are used to push the door together before the hydraulic cylinders push the plates into the door. This makes it easy to place your pieces of wood into the machine and assure a nice square door. 2 pins on either side of each of the vertical braces allow an easy and precise fit every time. There are 2 sets of 3 press stations on one rail. This allows for 3 stations to move in and out while remaining perfectly in line with each other. The stations also slide back and forth on each rail for different lengths of doors. You can make door widths ranging in size from 33 inches to 48 inches with a maximum length door of 76 inches. We can accommodate nearly all of your needs when it comes to different sizes. The hydraulic power unit has a 10-gallon steel hydraulic fluid tank with a 3,000 PSI 2-stage pump. The 2-stage hydraulic pump makes for a 4 to 5 second cycle time. An in-tank filter and a return line filter helps keep your hydraulic fluid clean and long-lasting. The electronic control panel allows you to operate all the air and hydraulic controls from a safe distance. A 2-handed safety system is used to provide a safe, efficient operating method. The unit is powered by a 3-phase 7.5 horsepower motor, complete with controls. A single-phase motor is optional as well. Contact us at realsteel.com or call Darren at 570-713-0665. Real Steel, production machines for the wood industries.
Now, the second part of your inclination, I've almost lost my train of thought. You'll have to help remind me, but we were talking about
the C-suite domination mentality versus the boots on the ground. Big conversation in our community, right, Travis? Like, a lot of people build sheds. Yeah. They love to build sheds. They're good. They're great shed builders. They build a great product, but they're getting drug into all these other things like sales coaching, sales professionalism, sales development, SDRs, SMS, SEO, every other acronym that you can think of, CRMs, they're like, what am I doing for Google PPC and all this? And I'm like, wait a minute. My entrepreneurial journey got me to building sheds. It did not get me into this other world. So how did those connect? And then what can I do about it? So I would think other industries experience this as well when you're selling a retail product.
A lot of that, what you mentioned, is a lot of marketing jargon, that has to do with websites. And it's really, really hard to know it all. I mean, I will say, guys, I'm very blessed. I started a marketing company in 2017, and I have a degree in marketing and communication that goes along with my merchandising. So I've been really, really lucky to have an understanding.
It's a beautiful marriage.
It is a beautiful marriage, and it has really, really, I'm blessed to have used the talents that my college education actually gave me towards my career. But now here's one big, I think, clarification for anybody listening. I like to use the phrase know when to hold them and know when to fold them a lot when I talk about closing strategies. And the same thing can go for marketing strategies at some point. It can be really, really hard to find somebody that you trust and what they're telling you is like the best thing for your business. And that's the coaching that you're talking about. But number two, you've got to learn to trust professionals, to let them do the jobs that you're hiring them to do. No matter what kind of education I may have, I have to know my weaknesses. I got to know my strengths. I got to know my weaknesses. I got to know when to hold them. I got to know when to fold them. And I got to be willing to put my money where my mouth is and hire the people who do know and who are the experts in their field. Now, in a world of marketing and SEO and SEM, like what you mentioned right here, when I started my marketing company, I knew that in the beginning, back in 2017, I didn't have a clue what any of that was, first of all. Now, having practiced and kept putting one foot in front of the other, I'm not saying that I'm an expert at it, but I at least have a clue as to what it is so that I can handle a conversation with a professional that I'm trying to hire to put that in place. And I think at the end of the day, it's really, really important for people to do your research, to become as knowledgeable as you can, to at least be able to hold those conversations. But we have to learn to trust in the professionals who are talented in their craft and specialize. But man, is it a minefield? 1,000%. I don't know how you feel, Travis, but for me, trying to even find professionals to help me in certain categories, like I've had to learn just so that I can be my own advocate, right?
Yes.
That's
so
mining the field.
Yeah, I think that is such an important thing for entrepreneurs to remember. I think entrepreneurs need to know that they do not have to do it all, but they have to, exactly what you said, know your strengths and weaknesses. Okay, I know what I'm really good at. So those are the things where I'm going to maximize my return on and do. And now I also know the things that I'm not as good at. On the things that you're not as good at, I think it's a absolute waste of time for us to try to become great at the things we're not good at. I think you should go all in on what you're good at, but you should know enough about the things you're not good at to know if you're making a smart hire or not, because you are going to have to hire that out. You're going to have to either freelance hire it out or you're going to have to internally hire. But like you said, if you don't know what your metrics are and you don't know how you're going to judge the hire, you're setting yourself up for some massive failure and losing a lot of money. So you have to know enough to, like you said, hold those conversations. So I love that. Could not agree with that more. And that takes a little bit of time. It takes sitting with yourself, self-reflection, self-awareness, all those things and humility. Talk about humility again, looking yourself in the mirror and thinking back over the past 5 years and being like, I am just not that good at that thing. I have tried and I am just not that good. And it is time to hire that out. Or also on the flip side, and a lot of us grew up in a very conservative environment, and we're very humble in our own right, so to speak. We don't like to brag about ourselves. I think you equally have to look at yourself and say, I am really good at this one thing. I've been given the talents. God has blessed me with the talents, and I am really good at this thing. And you need to go all in on that then. So I love that. Shane, I don't know if you have any other thoughts. I'm going to ask another question that's going to change the conversation a little bit. So if you got any other thoughts on this.
Well, I just to add to it, our industry sees that very thing. And let me bring that in layman's terms. Like, how many of our listeners today have had, if they're in sales, have had somebody come in and say, that's too much, I can build it cheaper myself? Of course you can do it. Mm-hmm. Of course you can. Of course you can do it cheaper yourself. I can cook my own meals cheaper, and I'll never have a reason to go out to eat. I could spend the time, I suppose, to build my own home, or I could hire a professional. So you have to think about, Alison, what you talked about earlier. What is the value proposition that you bring to the table? But we can build this. We can build this cheaper because we order in bulk material, for instance. So and then we can be more efficient, and then we can build it to specifics. Now you're not having to run to Lowe's or Home Depot or the hardware store and, oh no, I forgot this drill bit, and oh no, I forgot that saw blade, and I forgot this, and the amount of time it takes. Now, if you're doing it as a value add to your life, hey, I want to build this with my son. We want to go out and do this. It's no longer about the product then and the saving money. There's a totally different concept to why you're building it. But if you're just trying to build it cheaper yourself to save money, and if it's only because you don't feel like you're seeing the value, that's where it becomes our job to show the value proposition. The same for me is whenever I'm selling advertising on the show or trying to sell marketing or whatever business I'm in, you have to, whatever I'm selling, you have to add the value proposition. So just layman's terms, I felt like I was digging what you guys were saying because it was in my wheelhouse of my day-to-day sales activity.
And just to throw, before you ask your question, Travis, just to throw in, what you just described is exactly what I try to help teach, which is, how do you relay the perspective to that buyer of why they should spend the money for you to build and install that shed versus him even doing it with his son? And how do you actually build that picture? How do you, and so that is a mindset and chameleoning. So I don't want to stay too long on that. And
no, that's a great segue. That's actually a really great segue into my question. So my question is, we're sitting at the end of 2023. However your year ended as a professional in this industry, you could be sitting at, it was a decent year, it was a great year, it was a horrible year. Wherever you're at, let's say you want to kick things up a notch. Let's say you've been kind of taking orders. You've not been creating orders in 2023, and you want to do a little better. What's some practical things, whether you're hauling sheds and whether you have a shed hauling business and you want to grow your trucks on the road, whether you're a manufacturer and you want to increase the amount of sheds you're trying to manufacture in 2024, or whether you're in sales and or in rent to own and you want to increase the actual unit sold, or you want to increase the amount of contracts that you get. What are some real practical things that you teach that we could implement going into 2024 to increase 10%, 15%, maybe 20%, maybe 30%, or to get ourselves in a better position at the end of 2024 to be to say, man, we did some things differently, and we have a percentage of increase because of those things.
How would a customer know what shed brand you sell? Of course, you and I work in the shed industry and can often spot a brand a mile away just by its colors, styles, and customizations. However, to most customers, all sheds are created equal, right? Wrong. You want the customer to know your shed brand. An Identigrow nameplate helps your customer with 5 key components every shed customer needs: identity, information, authenticity, advertising, and ownership. Identigrow. helping identify your shed brand for over 20 years.
So the packages that I'm putting together, which are basically, there's, a self-driven element to sales training that I believe in, because I can't teach you anything that you're not willing to learn. And, my first thing is basically asking people to take somewhat of a mental inventory and doing a mindset check and balance on how they currently are with customers, how they act. And I believe that once you've put yourself in check as to your strengths and your weaknesses, it's at that point that we can accurately look at what your goals are, right? That unique value proposition, break that down. And then we have to just go out and figure out how we're going to put that into play. So we're
talking about sales here. What does that mean? What does that mean for a sales professional then? What would that inventory look like?
Yeah. So when you actually order a workbook from me and go through the book, that mindset is going to ask you a lot of questions, a lot of self-evaluation questions on how you react with customers, your timeliness, how often does it take you to respond to emails? How often does it take you to follow up with a customer? Follow-up's a big stickler for anybody in the sales business, because we can just let something ride and let it go. And you don't even realize that you've got active opportunities sitting right in your mailbox, your email box, And so for a person who is going to apply those mindsets, I don't want to give it all away on the podcast. I'd love for people to come and check it out with me on your own. That is how I make money. So
that's right. Bring them in. Bring them in.
But I will tell you, I did do it as an affordable methodology for self-application. And then if you want to take it next further, I do offer workshops where I can come and actually work with your people hands-on, and we can go into a practical day-to-day and looking at what you're missing. Is it your time management? Because I believe a lot of this is in the foundation principles of work ethic. And I'm not saying that nobody has a work ethic, but listen, we all, spend too much time on the Facebook, or maybe we're not programming ourselves to go through our sent emails. That's a freebie for you guys. Go through the emails that you've already sent in the last week, and I guarantee you will find opportunities to follow up and close opportunities that were available to you. So that's like a free version for you today.
I can verify that. That is a fact. There is opportunity in your set.
There are opportunities in your sent emails.
Why do you think it is a great segue, really? Why do you think salespeople, some people don't struggle in sales to follow up or to speak? They're just not naturally inclined. I always like to ask the question, are good salespeople made, or are they trained? Are they born, or are they trained? I always feel like it makes for an interesting conversation to hear people's thoughts on it. But why is it that some people will naturally follow up and some it takes more motivation?
Usually it's a time management issue.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Interesting.
Usually in my experience, most salespeople, not only, they just simply forget to put the follow through in place. And, I work a lot with time blocking and setting boundaries for yourself in your day to day, and finding your work, through your workflow, where can we assign a moment for you to stop and reflect and do that follow up. And 9 times out of 10, I hate to say it, but it's so easy. The stuff that I'm teaching is not rocket science. I don't think that salespeople are some people are naturally better than others, but other people can work and be better at it if they will allow themselves the time and the organization to remind themselves of tasks that are needing to be completed. And so I do believe that it can be taught. It's funny because I have a free sort of a free seminar that I do, right? And I named it the problem with salespeople. I think that's really funny.
That's really great. Yeah, that'll
Right?
pique your interest.
So it's not always free depending on if I travel, but like if it's a webinar or something, or if your company just needs like a jump start into the program, like I'll go over the problem with salespeople webinar. And I actually took some real practical elements from there's a show. Now it may not be for your audience because they're pretty conservative, but there's a show that's been out for a while called Suits, and it's about lawyers. Are y'all familiar with that?
Oh
yeah, on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's on Netflix too. But anyway,
Yeah.
so some of this wasn't even me, but I was watching that show like, way back when. And one of the attorneys on there started referring to everybody, certain people in the office as grinders. I don't know does that ring a bell to either of you?
Yeah.
So
I've watched it. So.
You've watched it. Okay. So he talks about how certain people are grinders, and Louis Litt, who is this character, is a grinder. I started doing some research on that, and I was like, man, that's a really good sales terminology too. Like certain people are grinders. Like they grind it out and they just go and they're hard workers, and they're out there on the daily grind, and they're hitting the road and they're putting those miles in the car and they're stopping and they're hitting and checking all these boxes. But the truth is that they have no broad perspective. And so, in this seminar that I do, the problem with salespeople, I talk about the 4 styles of salespeople: the grinder, the minder, the binder, and the finder. And if a person or a group or an employer wants to really look at the broad spectrum in personality traits of the people on their team, every single member of the team fits into one of those 4 categories of salespeople. And it is truly, it's amazing. And so when you see the light bulb come on people's eyes, when they realize like which category they fit in and what they're missing, it's that realization of the pieces of the puzzle that you're missing. That's when we can really do the work. The work can begin.
That's
because
good.
It's only when you realize what you're missing can you actually try to achieve greatness.
There's an old saying that says, hard work beats talent when talent don't work, or when talent doesn't work hard, or something like that. And that grinder mentality. I mean, I think of like my upbringing or the people in my community, or I think of my dad as like never making more than $10 an hour, right? His whole life, never, just working all the time, 6th grade education, and just like, that was it. He was self-taught, self-motivated. He had to be. My mom, same way. Neither parent graduated high school. So like they were the definition of like, what I would have called like the working class blue dog Democrats in the 1980s. They were like, they were just, hey, we work hard, and
that's my family too.
Yeah, that'll solve all your problems. My dad always thought that if you'll just outwork everybody, the world's yours. And I was like, man, I don't know. There's a changing of the guard now in the world, where there's things that can make AI, like the emergence of AI and like what it does. I won't tell on who it was, but I'll give you a perfect example. It's an Amish listener. So there's a phone call in line. And like our Plain community friends, Alison can call in and listen to the podcast. So they'll use like a landline to call in and listen, and there's prompts and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's unique. I know. But there's some of the most dedicated listeners, and like one has access to email, and I won't put his name out there, but he emailed recently, and he said, wow, the bios that you're putting out on these shows, I'll give a freebie away here too, right? The bios that you're putting out on these shows are amazing. You're very well spoken, and it really makes me want to listen to the episode now. And I messaged back and I said, well, I appreciate the kind words, but if I can just be completely transparent with you, AI is creating my bios for the show. I used to sit down and do all of the bios and try to be as wordy and as pithy as I could with everything that I would say, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm saving a tremendous amount of time by just paying for the AI service for $15 a month. And they create some absolutely amazing bios, which I got a compliment on. So it's an example of like, I'm not necessarily working hard there, but I'm trusting the process.
You're trusting a service and it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's super awesome.
So awesome. Spoiler alert, guys, it's not actually me writing those bios. So, you know, it used to be. You can go back.
But even with that, even with that though, Shannon, I mean, you do have to educate yourself on AI, and you do have to educate yourself on what prompts are good going into the AI, because the AI is only as good as what you put into it. So there's still work on your, while it does, I mean, the mule that we use to deliver our sheds is another example. I mean, what a hack to deliver a shed faster. Well, you got to know how to run the mule. You got to put in the work to learn how to run the mule and make it work effectively for you. So I think there is working hard and working smarter, but man, it's hard work. Someone that's just a dog and a grinder if you've got that dog in you and you're willing to continue to learn and get better, you've got a really bright future.
Well, and one thing else I love to talk about with that add-on, because that's not in the book, you guys. That's just something that was developed later when I realized that I needed to find a way to communicate like what we're missing. And when I talk to employers and I've talked to buying groups and I've done this, for it really doesn't matter the size of the company, right? Because I feel like within a business, everybody's got one of those. And sometimes if you could just recognize what one employee might be missing, the other employee might have, and you've got to be able to create that element of team and camaraderie to see who's filling in the gaps. If somebody's missing a key element for performance and they're not able to achieve it, you might be able to supplement that with somebody else you've got on the team that is in that mindset. So it's just real handy for companies, I think, to look at and to realize like who's good at what, and who do we think we might need to move this person into a different role, and it would make the professionalism and the success rate of the company as a whole a lot more profitable and performance driven if we actually have people in the right roles. And I've had circumstances, I don't want to mention any names, but, I've seen people be pushed into a role that they don't belong and constantly be subjected to numbers and performance attributes. And that's that CEO mindset that I talk about. By the way, Shannon, this really takes it back to one of those points that you're talking about. A lot of times, like a big company or corporations, they have an idea of structure and how people should be defined. And I truly believe that it's the mindset of the employee and those functionalities that should drive where a person is working in the field. Because, someone who's sitting in an office with a 3-letter name behind them, they're not a boot on the ground. They're not actually seeing what people are doing and what they're performing and how they do it. And anyway, and I've watched the mentality of an employee just be devastated over the amount of time, to the point where this individual lost their job. And all of that could have been prevented if the calls that were being made and the requests that were being driven from the ground up and saying, this person isn't meant to be in this role. This person needs to be in this role over here. If we don't have it, we need to create it.
So accurate.
It doesn't mean that the person is not a good employee. It just means that they're not in the right field for them. I didn't mean to take it back there,
good.
But that's
good. We talk all the time about
C-suite mentality.
We talk about like a lot of times they'll take their best salesperson and make them like the sales manager. But what happens with a good salesperson? They keep selling because it's what they're passionate about. Managing people, that's a totally different thing. So like it's identifying the strengths and weaknesses, and whether you do that through personality test and different things or whatever you do, but you have to proactively try and find the talents and the values that people possess, because I'm like, I've always said I was a terrible techie person, but I love people. So like, I'm going to gravitate toward like supervisorship, but not because I love to supervise. I love to develop people. I love to watch people even go far beyond what I've ever, whatever I could accomplish. Because like, I feel like sometimes I can see that passion that's in them, that fuel that's in them. And I just kind of want to see them excel. It doesn't matter to me. To me, part of my success goes with them, right? Whenever they go on to be more successful, because you can always look back and say, I had a little bit of a hand in that, even if it was connecting them from A to C. I was the B. I was the B that was there and got them through. And then they went as far as they could possibly go. But at least I crossed over and helped them get there. Guys, believe it or not, it's an hour, and I feel like we could talk for 3 hours, 4 hours, and I think we should sometime. And maybe what we should do is just set up like a reoccurring at some point, maybe once a year or something, come back on, introduce ourselves. But I want to give Alison the time real quick. If somebody at Shed U or Making Sales Simple or Shed Expo, Garage Shed Carport Builder, any of those want to reach out to you as a speaker, someone who would be on the stage, I would love to connect you in any way possible. But beyond that, just anybody who wants to know more about you or your book, you want to do a little bio real quick and tell people where to find you and all that good stuff.
Sure. My website's kind of a shell right now because I had to humble myself and hire somebody to rebuild part of it for me. So please bear with me, but it is there. It is www.repmethods.com. And on the website, you have lots of different options for assistance with sales training, from very, very low cost packages all the way up to you can hire me to come in and do a boot camp for your team over a longer period if necessary. And again, bear with me right now while the store is being rebuilt, but it should be up and running by January 4th or 5th. That's the kind of the plan as we go. And I've had to humble myself and wait for that to finish, as I'm sure you have all had pains in the past. So thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
That's great. And then the books, you've wrote a couple of books.
Yeah, the books are available. You can buy them from me, and I actually offer signed copies that I sell through my store. Of course, you can also get Amazon.com. We're at Roku Rakuten. I can't spell the word, which is basically the Walmart online shopping tools. So if you don't like reading and you want to listen to the book, you can go through the Google Play Store and actually buy the audiobook. We're on Apple Books in the ebook format. So just about anywhere that you can find your reading preference, we have an option for you.
And we've got The Art of Selling, and then the other is... Or was it just the one?
So I've just got one book right now. I've got another book coming out this August, which will be about commercial industry. But this is The Art of Selling. We make order makers, not order takers. And if you'd like that workbook comparison package, that is available only on my website for $9.95, and I will ship them out to you myself.
Well, we're going to have to check it out. I will definitely go on Audible and get it, but at some point I'll reach out and try to get a signed copy, because I think it's always cool to have a signed copy of those who've been on the podcast. And I want to stay connected in any way that we can. I always do this, and I know we're real short because we're on such a long time, but I've been doing this recently. Off the cuff, one question to me or Travis, or one each. If you could ask anything in the world, whether it be about sheds, podcasting, marketing, doesn't really matter, personal, what one question would you ask each of us? And we'll try to keep our answer short and sweet.
Okay. I guess my question for Travis Beachy, so being in Waco, Texas, and building your shed brand, what has been the most successful merchandising add-on that you have done by creating your brand? Because I love what you're doing. I can already tell you're doing a great job. What has been the most successful add-on for you?
Thanks for the question. In terms of product, you're talking about actual product?
Sure.
Yeah. So we offer a suite of products. We don't just sell sheds. So our name of our company is called Farm and Yard. So our whole mission, our whole goal is to provide structures and solutions for farmers and then residential people in their backyard. So that's anything from a chicken coop, a greenhouse, a shed, a home office, a workout studio, a podcasting room, and then kids play sets. We do a really fun line of kids play sets. So we connect and serve a lot of kids across Waco. So we want you to come back and buy multiple things from us. We want to be the solution for multiple things. And there's pros and cons to that. There's some days we get takes a lot of energy for all these different product lines. And sometimes there's value in just being focused on one thing. But we've been doing this since 2016. I've really loved the decisions that we've made to do this. And I'm not looking to change anytime soon. I love being able to offer, and then we do the steel structures as well. So a lot of steel structures for people wanting to cover up their boats, their RVs, covering up their equipment, hay sheds, shelters for animals, different stuff like that. So any type of structure for the farm or the ranch, and then any type of structure for a residential backyard. So that's really we've had some cool opportunities to work with, Chip and Jo, like for example, over at the Silo is just providing some really unique spaces over there for their clients and their employees. And so we do a lot more than just providing a shed to throw your boxes and Christmas decorations in. So
Awesome.
That's how we think about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, Mr. Shed Geek yourself, I think my question for you, Shannon, would be, do you see yourself having more podcast guests in the future talking about the tiny house movement and how that affects the shed industry?
Oh, absolutely.
Good question.
Yeah, the tiny house, like a lot of people say it's like a fad and it was like just a moment. But there's like a whole industry around, because it gets into like where you start talking about, what's habitable. What are we looking at tiny homes as like a fad and we're spending, an unreasonable amount per square foot because it's fun. You know what I mean? And we just want to take these things and they're cool. Or are we talking about like affordable housing and how it affects tax structure in different states? Like, and there's like a tiny home movement. There's a festival that happens in Colorado. I was wanting to go to it last year, and I really want to go. One thing that we found in our marketing, and this is really a freebie too as well, is you'd be amazed at what success we've seen with like marketing tiny homes, because the shed industry serves sort of two worlds. We serve a minimalistic crowd, right? Because we're able to do tiny homes for people who want to live smaller and downsize and do all those things. But then we serve people who have excess. Like the American dream is to have more and then more and then more. So like just keep buying sheds and you can keep putting it in your stuff. So we're in construction, right? So we sell solutions to people's problems with these wooden structures. And then like Travis said, it gets into all these other ancillary products like play sets. And the next thing you know, we're talking about garages. And so like we're to me, outside of we follow the housing industry, but outside of a house, a lot of the products we sell end up being one of the bigger products on your property. Outside of your home and your car, we can sell garages. We can sell a lot of structures.
She sheds.
Yeah. Offices. Mm-hmm. During COVID, so home offices went through the roof. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, I love our industry, and yes, to answer your question, I do see more guests. I definitely want to have more from the tiny home community. I'm even trying to figure out how I'm starting more businesses. So I'm trying to figure out, like, this is my passion. Those other businesses fund my passion, but this is my passion. So I told my wife, I said, I could be on here 5 days a week, but I'm going to have to do 1 day a week just for sake of mind at some point. But if I ever get to the point to where I can just travel and interview people, that's what I love. So, Yes, I want to have more and talk more about tiny homes for sure. So thank you for the
Awesome,
question.
because I'm an enthusiast.
Cool.
Yes.
Oh, nice, very good. Well, it's just a great movement, and I don't think it's temporary. I think it's here to stay.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.